Okay guys, today I'm going to talk to you about a slightly different topic matter, which is equally as important as the more tactical stuff I dive into in terms of how to grow and scale your business. This is a topic matter of mental health and well-being and my experience with navigating that as an individual in their 20s who's now scaled their business to multi-seven figures and done so alone as a solopreneur. And I just want to talk about how I've navigated a few bits and bobs that have arisen in my life in terms of personal matters, business matters, etc., the impact that had on me to the extent where this year I took, truthfully, a bit of a sabbatical from work, where I was kind of passively carrying out my work responsibilities in terms of client fulfillment, a few bits and bobs of content creation, but not a huge amount, and doing the least amount possibly required to continue to maintain my business at that moment in time. But I'm now back from that period of time and that sabbatical, but I just want to speak about how I navigated that entire situation, how I got there in the first place, and now my thoughts having come out the other end of it. And it was a period of about 6 months, truthfully. So fundamentally, at its core, I personally believe that resentment held me back an awful lot this year, and arguably has done so for quite some time now. And there's a few variables, a few things that occurred in my life that contributed to this significantly, and of course I need to take responsibility for all of them. However, there are certain things that have taken place in my life that I have no control over, no bearing whatsoever on. And this started back in 2020. So for context, I'm now 27. Obviously in 2020, I was 22. Or coming into 21, 22. And unfortunately, a year prior, 18 months prior or so, my dad was diagnosed with cancer. And it was a very severe form of cancer, and it's pretty evident. In retrospect, it was terminal. However, the doctors at the NHS and also my dad didn't want to communicate that it was terminal cancer. That was their decision, so navigating that was really complex once he had passed away, because I just didn't appreciate the frank significance of that, or kind of how aggressive it was, truthfully. And I was 20 and I was trying to kind of crack on with my own life to an extent as well. 21, 22. Trying to crack on with my own life. So yeah, that was just a horrible period of time in which I was seeing my dad go through chemotherapy. I was living in London, of course. I had my own apartment, my own place. I was piecing my life together, building the foundations. And simultaneously I was seeing the person I'd idolised my entire life progressively get more and more ill and then eventually pass away. So on a personal level for me, that was extremely impactful, and unfortunately he passed away. We lost him just before the onset of the lockdown, the first lockdown in 2020. So yeah, that was a really difficult time to navigate. And I personally felt that I navigated that very successfully in the first 6 months, the 6 months after the loss of my dad. And I went to EMDR therapy with a specialist on a weekly basis, which was extremely painful as an experience and quite frankly torturous, but it enabled me to process, well, at least I thought it enabled me to process grief and recover from that in some capacity and function as a normal human being once again. But in retrospect, that I didn't process that properly. I chose to put my head down, really focus on work, tunnel vision, put the blinkers on. I isolated myself pretty aggressively in that time period, and of course that was also enforced in some capacity by the enforcement of lockdown as well. So it wasn't just my own choice, it was also lockdown that contributed to that heavily. But yeah, I very much isolated myself and started and continued to really push aggressively in my business. So that's the first thing that I grew a significant degree of resentment for. And the resentment associated to that was, of course, the loss of my dad. Losing him when I was only 21, 22 just felt wrong. And I was extremely angry at the world for that, and for the occurrence of that event, and obviously miss him dearly today, still very much so. Wish he was still around. So yeah, I had a huge degree of resentment for that, and also, really unfortunately, I resented him to some extent as well, as it pertains to how he chose to take care of himself, and that's a really misplaced degree of resentment. I appreciate that now, but I didn't do previously, because I thought he could have taken better care of himself. He very much prioritised his work, and also us, his sons, me, my brother, and of course my mum as well, his wife. He very much prioritised us over him. And that led to him to being the best partner for my mum possible and the best dad to me and my brother, and I'm extremely grateful for that. But it also led to him then not taking care of himself subsequently, and I was pretty cognizant of that. We were all pretty cognizant of that. We tried to get him to go to the gym, sleep properly, etc. It wasn't like he had massively bad habits or anything like this. He just, I didn't think placed that much importance on taking care of himself. It wasn't the main focal point of his life. His work was, and looking after us. So yeah, I did definitely develop a significant degree of resentment for him because of that, and a few other bits and bobs which I won't really divulge from a financial side of things as well. But I have no right to judge that at all, and I definitely was judgmental of that, and I did develop a significant degree of resentment towards him for these things. But I have no idea what it's like to be diagnosed with cancer, with 2 kids and a wife and a house and a mortgage and a dog and a career to take care of. I have no idea what that's like. I haven't experienced that. I'm 27. So for me to develop any resentment is something that I need to take responsibility for sure. But it's something that I did experience a significant degree of. And that was the first thing that I developed a significant degree of resentment for. A second factor, which is directly associated, was the relationship I had with my ex-girlfriend at that exact moment in time. We had been in a relationship for about, I think, 3 years at the time, and decided it really wasn't a good fit anymore. It wasn't a healthy place to be in for either of us. And therefore I was trying to navigate removing myself from that relationship at the time in which my dad was in a hospice for his cancer treatment and end-of-life care, palliative care. And I was kind of unaware of it being true palliative care at the time. I just thought he was going in for a temporary respite and to kind of give my mum a little bit of a break as well. But that wasn't the case. It very much was end-of-life care, and I realise that now. But yeah, during that time period, I was trying to remove myself from that relationship, and unfortunately the person I was with at the time decided to drink themselves silly to the extent where they had a whole bottle of vodka on their own in the late evening. It was like maybe 11 p.m, close to midnight, after I had a conversation with her about me wanting to remove myself from the relationship. I did so in a very polite, courteous manner, and I was very careful about how I approached that. But yeah, she decided to do that, and then I called her just to check and make sure she was okay, and I lived just down the road at the time in my own apartment from hers. And yeah, when she checked in, she clearly wasn't okay. She was slurring, couldn't communicate properly, and I was very aware of the fact that it was alcohol induced. And therefore, at the time I had a key to her apartment, so I went in. Yeah, and she was just obliterated from the alcohol she'd consumed, to the extent where it was threatening to her quality of health. Like, it was a really significant amount of alcohol she consumed, particularly for that person, and the fact she didn't consume alcohol ever, and therefore wasn't used to it at all. And that resulted in me calling the hospital, calling my mum, asking for her advice and help on what to do next, because I'd never experienced anything like that. I don't drink, never have done. She didn't drink either, so this was a total shock to me as well. Calling my mum, and yeah, my mum was amazing. She was so supportive of me trying to navigate that and tell me what to do, next steps, etc. Because I was in a degree, kind of a shock, I think, really, and not knowing what to do next and how to navigate that situation, because I'd never been in that situation before. My mum was great. We called the hospital, I called the ambulance arrived, etc. And then I realised really quickly, I was like, holy shit, this is terrifying. I'm a young guy, and a girl is in a really bad situation here because she's drunk in huge amounts of alcohol. They're probably going to ask me questions. And 2 guys came in and did ask me questions. They asked me to come outside the apartment, have a chat, go through what happened. They went through my phone to see certain things, just to make sure that I hadn't carried out or conducted any bad behaviour which inflicted this degree of psychological ailment upon this individual, my ex-girlfriend. And they were like, oh, okay, no worries. They checked the phone, they made sure it was all good, etc. I was like, damn, that's terrifying. Like, I never experienced anything like that. I realised how much had I been with the wrong person, and obviously it was the wrong person, but had they chosen to misconstrue something, that could jeopardise my life in some capacity. And that was pretty terrifying. And then also, the next day I was due to go to the hospice to see my dad. So I was in a huge amount of emotional anguish, extremely sleep deprived by this point because it was a late night event that took place and the ambulance coming over, etc. I then had to go to the hospice the next day and bring my ex-partner with me. So she stayed at my parents' house whilst I went to see my dad. Yeah, it's just a horrible situation. I had a huge degree of resentment for that because I felt that was just morally wrong on so many levels. Yeah, and I had a huge degree of resentment for that, and I hadn't addressed that properly until really recently either. Another variable that contributed towards resentment also was, of course, the gap that we experienced as a byproduct of losing my dad was significant for my family and myself as well. Not only in terms of the dynamic of the family and kind of how we navigated that situation, which is of course extremely difficult for everyone that loses a person of significance in their family, but also on a financial level as well. And I didn't really know how to navigate that because at the time I was still doing very well. But at the time, I just started making money. I make way more money now than I did then, but I just started cracking kind of 30k months consistently. And I didn't know whether or not to kind of volunteer taking responsibility for things financially or not, whether or not that was the right thing to do. I felt it was for sure the right thing to do, but then I also was concerned by the fact that if I were to do that, it would have an impact on my relationship with my mum in some capacity as well. I didn't really know how to navigate that, and I didn't navigate that particularly well. I didn't think anyone did, actually. And it definitely impeded my relationship in some capacity with certain family members, and we've discussed that at length, but that kind of came to a head this year where I really didn't know anymore how to separate my relationship on a personal level and financial level with certain individuals, and I found that really, really tough. And of course, I'm in a very fortunate position in which I can help people out if they require help, which I'm super grateful, and something that I've always aspired to be in that situation and have the capacity to do that. But once I got there, I really didn't know how to deal with it because I hadn't planned that in advance. No, I don't think anyone does. So yeah, that was extremely tough. And then as a byproduct, I resented the position I was in, even from a financial perspective. And I didn't want to have dependence at such a young age. Because yeah, it was from 21, 22 kind of onwards. And I just found it really tough, to be fair. And I think perhaps quite a few people can resonate with that if they've been in that situation. That then also resulted in me lending very close friends of mine money as well when they're in a situation in which they found themselves in a compromised situation financially. But obviously speaking about money with certain people is quite difficult to get transparent insights, transparent answers to certain things in terms of when's that going to be paid back, are you in a good space now, what's happening there, etc. And that definitely, all of these factors combined at that time definitely led to me isolating myself. I'm very much a solopreneur. I like spending time alone. I like working. I always put my head down. I crack on. I find huge fulfillment from being productive in every domain of life, financially, in terms of physical health and well-being, and also in terms of obviously what I'm building with my work, my business, my client delivery, etc. And that's my safe space. That's my comfort zone. Being productive is my comfort zone. Anything external to that zone of comfort, I kind of just neglected in so many ways. Because I was like, oh, I'm good at these things, I'm good at making money, I'm good at taking care of myself and being an authority in the world of health and an embodiment of that. I'm good at client fulfillment work, etc. I just chose to neglect everything else because I wanted to isolate and focus on the things that I deemed to be productive and therefore correct. But that then led to being in situations like this where I didn't allocate enough bandwidth to them. And nor did I give myself enough time to process things which were significant and had significant consequence on my life, as I've just discussed the events of already. The final event which contributed to this pretty significantly, well, there's a couple of others in terms of like business partners just going astray and not being particularly great to work with, going awry, but I should have seen that in advance really, because it was pretty evident kind of from the outset of working with them that it wasn't the right fit, but we all make those mistakes, so that wasn't by any means a traumatic experience. That's a very normal one. I actually didn't have any resentment to it, but just thought I'd acknowledge it. The final one was also experiencing what I perceived to be the biggest personal betrayal I've ever experienced in my life at the latter end of 2022, start of 2023. That was a really significant personal betrayal, which I'm definitely still kind of recovering from or processing through different stages of, and that definitely contributed to a huge amount of resentment and further led to me isolating myself in many domains of life, and being pretty quiet about things for sure, to the extent where I wasn't responding to messages properly from family members, from friends, from client stuff. I'm on it like this. As soon as I get messages, I'm on it. I take care of my client fulfillment and I take huge pride in it, and I have no negative association with doing so either, and that's why I'm so proactive with it also, of course. But when it came to personal things, I had built a huge degree of resentment and a negative connotation with a lot of these things, and therefore I just wasn't proactive with it, and I wanted to not have to engage with it and deal with it properly, which is a really poor approach, but obviously we all learn these things. So the reason why I then made the point of inferring that resentment held me back this year was all of this stuff that I hadn't properly processed came to a head more or less when I moved here, actually, to near Wimbledon, and I was a little bit more isolated. It's not in the city, it's 15 minutes by train out, so I can get into central really quickly, but it's very quiet out here. And I really wanted that. I definitely thought I wanted it, and I still do, for sure. I very much appreciate the quiet, but being a solopreneur, working from home all the time, being in a very quiet environment, led to me doing a lot of thinking, a lot of processing, and obviously that's a good thing to be doing. But it resulted in a huge development of resentment coming to a head, probably from about February onwards. And it occupied a huge amount of bandwidth, to the extent where I no longer found much joy and fulfillment from the things that I previously had done. I very much enjoyed taking care of my clients still, and I don't think I ever will not do so. That's why I still deliver on my service in a one-to-one capacity. And I really love doing so. I love helping people. I find huge amounts of fulfillment from that selfishly, and obviously not selfishly because it benefits them significantly, but it is also a selfish thing. I really love helping people. But everything else in terms of my training schedule and routine, in terms of my day-to-day from a content creation perspective, in terms of even things like listening to music, playing tennis, which is a sport I love, seeing friends, I started to do a lot less of. And I started to feel really numb towards. I had no positive association with these things anymore. And you could argue that is, or could be presented as being in a depressed state. But truthfully, more than anything else, I just had a huge amount of anger and pent-up anger, which I hadn't communicated to people properly. And also I felt, to an extent, a lot of these things that had occurred in my life, where obviously, again, as I said, I do take responsibility for, I should have navigated a lot better. But also there was the occurrence of things that I couldn't have had any impact on, like my dad passing away, for example. I can't have changed that. I couldn't have changed that. I don't have the cure to cancer. It'd be amazing if I did. But I don't. And I know obviously a lot of people hope that they do have that, or wish they did have that, and wouldn't have lost loved ones. But yeah, I couldn't have any bearing on the event that occurred there and the loss of my dad at all. And that built even more resentment. But yeah, the resentment that I experienced, as I said, it occupied a huge degree of bandwidth in my head, and therefore I found no fulfillment from the basic activities that I did previously, and therefore wasn't doing as much of them, and certainly wasn't meeting the cadence required to facilitate progression in life. And then I'd say I chose to proactively take more of a sabbatical and kind of passively work and reach a maintenance point in, I'd say, March, the latter end of March, probably start of April. And that came to a conclusion about a week ago, just post Wimbledon. As I said, I love tennis, I love sport, I live now near Wimbledon, so I really wanted to enjoy that kind of 2-week period, that fortnight, and draw to a close that sabbatical period, which I did. I now feel 10 times better having taken that period of time off, and truthfully in that period of time I felt really depressed. I was questioning why I'm here. What's the point? I didn't know. I didn't have the answers to these things. And it felt like a bit of an existential crisis. Not to the extent where there's no suicidal thoughts here, but I was definitely getting concerned, for sure, about my quality of mental health and well-being at that moment in time. And the causal factor, in retrospect of all of this, is just unnecessary resentment. And I say unnecessary now because I wish I'd addressed it properly. That's why it is unnecessary. Had I addressed these things, it wouldn't have come to a head. But I did allow it to continue to build by not addressing these things external to work. And yeah, I just chose 2 or 3 weeks ago just to let it go. There's no point in me holding on to this resentment for any of these things anymore whatsoever. They've happened. Why the hell should I be resentful of them? It doesn't benefit my life. It doesn't benefit the lives of other people around me in any capacity. And it's not serving me. I'm not happy. So why on earth would I hold on to this thing which is making me unhappy as it pertains to resentment from multiple events? It makes no sense. So I chose to proactively start to engage in life once again properly, rebuild relationships with family members and also with friends. Start playing paddle with friends and friends from school that I've known since I was 9 years old, that I just wasn't seeing or spending time with, and they're great people and I love them dearly, and I just wasn't practically previously spending any time with them because I just wanted to isolate myself, and I felt social obligation as being an obligation and not something which I can benefit from, which is mental. But that's because of the headspace I was in. So I chose to proactively start to rebuild these relationships, let go of all of this resentment, and it's enabled or has elevated my bandwidth significantly to the extent where I don't really feel that element of resentment anymore, and I'm in a much better headspace as a byproduct of that. And I'm now back to doing the things I love again. I'm now training with the fullest intensity I've done so in a long period of time. back to creating content, which is why I started my career in the first place. I wanted to create content to build something and help people, and I wanted to do so since the age of 15. My first YouTube video was uploaded when I was 14, 15. It's now privated, funnily enough, because it is the most diabolical thing you will have ever seen. But yeah, I was so passionate and excited about these things and these opportunities and these prospects when I was that age, and I missed that for a long period of time just due to the mental state I was in. So I got back to doing those things again, and I love them, and I find huge amounts of fulfillment from them, and I feel like I'm now back to being my true self once again. And the clarity of mind I now have is unbelievable, and it's something that I really missed, and I'm very thankful for. So the whole point of this video really is, yes, we can dive into the tactical stuff as it associates to business growth, starting, growing, scaling, etc. Absolutely we can. That's a call from a good friend of mine as well, and a client. But yeah, absolutely we can do so. But it's really important to take care of other things in life, because they have equal as much significance in your life, and you will look back and you'll be regretful of not taking care of them, and they will come to a head and they'll bite you in the arse. And physiologically, psychologically, your body will tell you, you need to address these things now. This is why we're in a really bad state psychologically. It's because you haven't addressed these things, that you've left them, you haven't grown the balls, quite frankly, to address them properly, and now they're going to bite you in the arse. So don't do that, don't make that mistake, but also know that it's normal to experience these things, and we make mistakes, many of them, particularly if you guys are like me and you take huge pride in your business identity and you're slightly autistic like me. Autistic business person is wanting to focus on business and the levers that contribute towards success. That's great, but you've also got to take care of other things because they are equally as important, and if you don't do so, I don't think you'll be in a particularly great place psychologically. I certainly wasn't, because I do give a shit about other people in my life. I love other people in my life very dearly, and you can never turn that off. People are great, they're the best thing in life, so appreciate them, love them, take care of them, take care of yourself, and as a byproduct of that, you'll reach a state of equilibrium, provided you take care of everything: finances, your work responsibilities, your physical health and well-being, social responsibilities and relationships, provided you take care of all of them simultaneously. And I hate the term balance, but provided you allocate the appropriate amount of time to each of them, you'll be in a good spot. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, let me know in the comment section down below. Please give it a thumbs up, and of course subscribe to the channel. I'll dive back into more tactical stuff in the next videos, but I thought it was an important one to make because I wish that someone had made this and I'd consumed this piece of content when I was in my early 20s and not my latter 20s, being 27 now. Yeah, I think it's of huge importance and significance. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Check out the next one, of course. I'm uploading almost every other day, and I'll catch you guys in a bit.